Sometimes it's okay to start a video with, I told you so. I told you Snow White was going to absolutely bomb, and it did. It even came in under my meager expectations, which meant it was going to make under 100 million global. I thought it would make at least 100, 108 million. It couldn't manage that. And again, domestically, it just didn't resonate with any kind of an audience, coming in at the lowest possible projection number of 43 million. Now, that's according to estimates, and we're not quite through the weekend yet as I'm recording this. But when you see this Monday morning, know this: Snow White is the most despised movie in the theaters right now. Coming in second, Captain America: Brave New World, although it came in third this weekend. But we've got to talk about bigger things that are happening this weekend, or smaller things if you look at the overall box office, and what the shills are willing to do for the Disney company. Here we go. Now, before we get started, just that quick ask from me to double check that you're still subscribed. If you are, fantastic. Go ahead and watch this video and maybe another one. We're going to have a few on this wonderful Monday, and I could use all the viewership I could get. Plus, be sure to comment, hit the thumbs up button, and share the video around there. Now, if you're not subscribed, take a few seconds and take advantage of the free subscription here on the channel. Just click subscribe. It's that painless. Doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do after that is just click on the notification bell, turn them all on so you don't miss anything. Because if you'll notice, I try to record multiple videos a day, at least during the weekdays, and I try to give you at least one live stream each and every day, except for Sunday right now. Of course, now we got to get going into the Snow White story, and where do we start? Well, we start with the biggest of shills. That's right, Screen Rant with their Sunday update. Rachel Zegler's Snow White blows away competition at its debut weekend. But where does it stand against other Disney remakes? Well, this is kind of funny because they don't do a lot of correction for inflation or anything else, and they're trying to make it look like Snow White was a success, when we all know it suffered as a miserable failure. No one in their right mind, according to Deadline, would think that Snow White was a winner. Ho-hum! Snow White opens to 43 million. What poisoned this princess at the box office? We already know. She did. Rachel Zegler is a terrible, terrible person. I don't think anybody could argue with that, and she didn't ingratiate herself to the audience by doing a decent job portraying the character. I don't know that she even tried. She certainly isn't the singer that everybody claims that she is, and she's certainly no actor or actress in this case. She's not an action star, and most explicitly, she's not Snow White. Now, I know you're watching this on Monday, but with the Sunday update, Anthony wants us to know that Disney's Snow White is coming in lighter for the weekend with 43 million domestic and only 87.3 million global. That's terrible. The overall box office isn't great. I mean, it's going to come in much under what they absolutely needed this weekend, and I'm going to say these continuous weekend after weekend sub $100 million earnings for all the theaters is very, very bad. It's leading to probably the biggest disaster Hollywood certainly hasn't planned for. In fact, if you take a look at it, they're going to start to say recession when they should mean we're making garbage stuff nobody wants, especially Disney. Wow. And even Anthony gets something right in his article, or he tries, not knowing exactly how high this production went. We already know it's over 300 million, and we will have the actual official numbers coming out of the UK soon enough. But at 270 million that they're willing to admit to, and after 3 summers of shooting in the London area, I can tell you this film will flop to the tune of probably a couple $100 million. The disingenuousness of it all shows up here when they're comparing it to other Disney live action results, like Dumbo's lackluster start at 46 million, which beat it, and the absolutely terrible The Little Mermaid remake, which made 95.5 million. Can't really claim racism on this one, can ya? And Maleficent at 69.4 million, not adjusted for inflation, along with Cinderella also not adjusted for inflation at 67.8 million. These comparisons aren't really helping your argument at all, are they, Anthony? And the rest of Shill Media. Of course, Anthony's not the only one here. You've got the Variety take, which I think is funny. Box office Snow White leads with sleepy 43 million. Robert De Niro's mob drama Alto Nights misfires with a disastrous $3 million debut. If anybody deserves it, it's you, Bobby. It's you. And while Snow White certainly is leading the weekend at number 1 at $43 million, even Variety recognizes that the major press push was about the global box office take at $100 million. It didn't even get there. It's not going to. There's no magic mirror anybody can talk to get this to change. This was always going to be ugly, and I think you and I both know it. At least they don't bury the fact that there were many controversies along the way with this one, including criticism about the film's depiction of dwarves and the fact that they didn't just go ahead and, hire some dwarves. Of course not. Thank you, Peter Dinklage. Of course, right now, Variety wants to lean into the fact that there's a war in the Middle East that was started by somebody, and both Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot are standing on opposite sides of that engagement. I will say this, they didn't like each other anyway. There was no camaraderie on that set. There are a lot of people who were involved with it that are saying that these ladies just plain didn't get along, and I can't blame either of them. Rachel Zegler's too involved in herself to like anybody else in this world, and Gal Gadot knows she's absolutely a stone cold knockout, and Rachel Zegler isn't. There was never going to be a fairest of them all when the fairest person on that particular set was going to be the not prince, Mr. Burnap, who I think had an okay performance for being so disjointed. And that's the kindest thing I can say, and maybe the last review item I'll say about the film. But with a scaled back premiere because of all of the controversies in this film, largely due to Rachel Zegler herself, this film was certainly one Disney wanted to get out of the way of, and boy did they. But to wrap up the Penske media monopoly that is the trade media in Hollywood, box office Snow White limps to worrisome $43 million domestic opening, $87.3 million global. Limps. Yes, it does limps. We should call it limpy. They don't have a limpy dwarf. We just changed Snow White to limpy white. Or limpy beige, anyway. As an aside, and just for fun, let's talk about Mr. Jonathan Majors, who hoped for a comeback with Magazine Dreams. Believe it or not, this film was related to Searchlight before it got farmed off. It cracked about $700,000 this weekend in 815 cinemas, and I think Tom Ortenberg at his Briarcliff Entertainment is sad that he picked that project up, because this thing is not going anywhere, and despite all the wishes of Jonathan Majors himself, I don't think he'll ever return to Disney, let alone to his insane Marvel villain. Worse yet, the reviews coming in were terrible. Set aside the Rotten Tomatoes score, which seems to be still hovering in the 40s, low 40s, Snow White had $3.5 million in previews. That was the Thursday night early shows, and several others that count towards that as well, which started at 2 p.m. in all of the markets it opened in. This film was received so unfavorably that IMDb shuts down user rating after a 2.3 out of 10 score. I'm going to read this because Jordan writes it very well. People are acting totally normal in reaction to Disney's live-action Snow White. To all the review aggregate sites, I wish you luck this weekend. Yesterday, the user rating site for Snow White, which has had many advanced screenings and is now in theaters, was a ridiculously low 2.3 out of 10 on IMDb with over 2,000 votes. Today, IMDb, I guess this would have been on Saturday, has decided to hide the rating entirely. It doesn't show up on its page anymore, and you know what? I'm not surprised. IMDb, cowardly. But was Snow White review bombed by trolls? You bet. I can't argue with that. I imagine a lot of people got out there and just bombed the heck out of this because Rachel Zegler is that unlikable. Were there also actual honest people who gave a low rating? Of course there were. People like me, although I don't use IMDb anymore for that purpose. It can be both of those things, because two things can be true at the same time. It'll be impossible for IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, or anybody else to come up with a fair rating on this movie because it was just that bad and poorly received and, well, disliked before it even entered the market. This was always going to be bad, and unfortunately for Disney, that's kind of their future right now. But I think the last paragraph has one of the most important sentences that we should focus on, because that's the part I'm getting to. Critics have not been kind to it. And there's the overall sense that Disney's just glad to get this movie out of the way. Oh boy, was that true. But to speak to that, we have this from Peter Lloyd, a collection of bad reviews. From The Independent, lazy, visually repellent. The Guardian says exhaustingly awful. The Times says Disney has trashed its reputation. I could not agree more. HuffPost even went hard in the paint, saying a strange hot mess. Oh, Screen Daily, listless. Well, yeah. Vanity Fair. You would expect them to be fair, right? Good enough for TV. Yeah, everything feels good enough for TV with Disney these days. That's probably the statement of the year so far. And the BBC shows up to wrap it up with film has a major identity crisis. Yes, I think I said something similar in my review. And you know what? That's not untrue. It didn't know what it was. It didn't know what it wanted to be. It didn't know what direction to take. And you could tell that it had been shot at least 3 times, or many of the scenes, if not one part of the entire movie. Yeah, when you put together something like that in such a slapdash fashion, it's not going to resonate well with audiences. And if anybody wants to argue that this was not shot multiple times, I'll let Rachel tell you her own self. In an article from the New York Post, which talks about the uneasiness around the 2 actresses, let's spell it out from Rachel. This movie was a life-changing experience that has held about 4 years of my career. 4 years of my career. The growing up you do from the age of 20, when I was cast, to 23, the age I am now, cannot be accurately described, yet they exist here on film forever. I became a real adult during the course of this film, learned hard lessons, did hard things, laughed, cried, turned 21, lived across the ocean from my family, made new friends, and completely fell in love with this group of people I got to work with for 3 magical summers. We had the greatest crew in the world on this movie. It cannot be overstated. This photo dump doesn't even dig into the fun, the magic, yada, yada, yada. Oh, by the way, in this photo dump she put out on Instagram, there is no Gal Gadot. Say what you will about the New York Post, but they can certainly write a headline. Rachel Zegler leaves Gal Gadot out of Snow White tribute after rumors of tension. Family I came to care for deeply. Surely. And as I said, numbers, they don't lie. Disney Snow White 2025 is off to a snore, a yawn, a bore. You use your appropriate adjective. Disney's Snow White at 43 million domestic leads the weekend, with Black Bag falling in second, Captain America Brave New World in third. And as recently I've tried to point out, when your property has an even domestic and international box office return, you've got big problems, especially if you're a tentpole for Disney. It doesn't matter what you are, superhero film, Star Wars film, or fairy tale film. This is a bad sign. The Globe doesn't want this movie. In fact, I don't think anybody wants this movie. $87.3 million. You're $13 million under what they'd projected for the Globe. Sad sight to see? Or karma? I'll leave that up to you. All I know is that I told you so. And you probably agreed with me too. Anyway, it's audience participation time. Let me know. Were you expecting these low numbers for the box office? Were you expecting lower? Are you one of the few people that went to go and see this film? And if you have a favorite reviewer of films, I would love to hear about it, because I like to watch people give their thoughts on films that I'm rating myself. So leave their name and any other comment down in the comment section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya for real.